Spatial audio technologies impulse response sample expansion packs provide access to virtual channel-based surround and object-orientated spatial audio technologies for two-speaker systems and headphones, using impulse response samples created by A2D Studio products. Impulse response samples allow the acoustic characteristics of a space piece of sound-altering equipment or software to be captured and stored. It might be described as an acoustic photograph, where, instead of capturing a space visually, it is captured orally. The recorded impulse response sample is nothing more than an audio file that can be imported into a piece of software, called an impulse response processor. This impulse response processor, also termed a convolver, applies the impulse response sample to the audio during playback to recreate the sound of the audio as if being played in the sampled space, on the piece of sound-altering equipment or software so sampled. A2D Studio products provide impulse response samples for Dolby Virtual Speaker, Dolby Headphone, Dolby Digital Plus, Dolby Digital Plus Advanced Audio, Dolby Advanced Audio V2, Dolby Home Theater V4, Dolby ATMOS for speakers and headphones, Dolby Audio for speakers and headphones, DTS Audio Studio Sound Surround Sound, DTS Headphone X and many other well-known Dolby and DTS virtual channel-based surround and object-orientated spatial audio formats. In fact, there are hundreds of impulse response samples in the spatial audio technologies impulse response sample expansion packs. The most useful way for a potential user to observe the effects which impulse response samples may provide is by demonstration. While the demonstration, which appears here, makes use of Equalizer APO, the impulse response samples provided within the spatial audio expansion packs are also compatible with RocoDSP for Windows, Rootless JamesDSP and RocoPlayer for Android, as well as Easyeffects and JamesDSP for Linux. The demonstration begins by playing back the audio in plain stereo, after which an object-orientated spatial virtual speaker surround sound impulse response sample is applied to that audio. This first part of the demonstration should be observed using stereo speakers. The demonstration continues by reverting playback of the audio to plain stereo, after which an object-orientated spatial audio virtual headphone surround sound impulse response sample is applied to that audio. This second part of the demonstration should be observed using stereo headphones. The viewer will be advised, within the video, when it is appropriate to plug in stereo headphones. Please ensure that you have stereo speakers connected and, if it is applicable, that they are powered on. Please ensure that you have stereo headphones connected and, if it is applicable, that they are powered on. A2D Studio products have produced a number of spatial audio expansion packs for various operating systems, namely Windows, Android, and Linux. Each operating system may have a digital signal processor software application installed to it by the user, which features an impulse response processor or convolver. A2D Studio products provides a sampler version of the spatial audio expansion pack for each of the supported digital signal processor software applications, for each of the supported operating systems. These samplers require that the potential user install the appropriate digital signal processor software application in the operating system of the device to be used and so determine the usefulness of the impulse responses provided before any purchase is made. Potential purchasers are advised to download and install the relevant spatial audio expansion sampler prior to any purchase. Since the nature of software sales precludes the opportunity for the purchaser to access a refund under certain circumstances, those circumstances include, but are not limited to, the purchaser being unable to install the relevant digital signal processor software application, or the purchaser determines that the effect produced by the spatial audio impulse response samples provided are unsatisfactory. Potential purchasers should note that the effect created by the impulse response samples provided work with any speakers and any headphones. No additional hardware is required. A2D Studio products Spatial Audio Technologies Impulse Response Sample Sampler Expansion Packs are available for Equalizer APO RocoDSP for Windows, Rootless JamesDSP and RocoPlayer for Android, as well as Easyeffects and JamesDSP for Linux. The sampler expansion packs are made available to download and use, free of charge. They are provided, with a view to giving a potential purchaser the opportunity to determine the usefulness of the impulse response samples contained within the Spatial Audio Technologies Impulse Response Sample Sampler Expansion Pack downloaded. The sampler expansion packs contain impulse response samples that are audio quality restricted. They deliver a convolved output quality equivalent to MP3 at 128 kilobits per second, regardless of the quality of the audio source material. Even with this restriction, the potential purchaser should be able to observe the effect imparted to the source audio by any given impulse response sample.